I mean, look, I'm as much of an advocate as anybody in terms of like people maxing out their potential and going on the journey and seeking greatness and the whole, cliche thing. Like, I'm the biggest advocate for it. But the thing that just trips me up the most is when people are just baffled. They don't understand why they don't have X, Y, or Z success, or like you said, money or whatever. And to which I'm like, why would you expect it to be any different? You're a guy named Jeff who's unremarkable as fuck, and you've done nothing to earn the outcomes that you're looking for. Like, this is clear as day to me, right? Like, it would be crazy for someone, in my opinion, to go around wondering why the bank account doesn't look the way that they want it to look, or they don't have the success that they want, or the results that they want, or the whole fitness conversation, the body that they want, or whatever. It's like, man, I don't get it, man. It's like hard out here. It's like life doesn't just like happen to you and you just check out the hand that you're dealt and like, wow, this is interesting. Like, I'm unsuccessful. Like, what do you have to show for that?
You beautiful people. Welcome to Pirate Life Radio. I really want to thank our sponsors. I want to thank Caveman Coffee, of course. You can find them at cavemancoffee.com. Brand new nitro tea, a hibiscus tea that's cold brewed and nitrogenated and no sugar added, just hibiscus tea leaves and water and nitrogen. And it's available on the site and at a couple of key locations, but it's brand new. The best place to find it is on the site, and it is delicious, refreshing, and is in a big ass can. There's a lot of love in that can. So you can find the new hibiscus tea there. Holiday season upon us. A bunch of gift packs that are out there. Some really good ideas gift wise, and for all coffee lovers, or if you just want some dope new hoodies. Lacey had just designed a badass one with our saber tooth on the back of it. We have a new travel mug out. Anyway, a lot of stuff. Check it out. cavemancoffeeco.com. You can also check out some of my go-to supplements at originalnutritionals.com. I drink fish oil every day. Why do I drink fish oil? It sounds crazy. I want to balance out my omega-3, 6, and 9, especially you get heavy, inundated with an imbalance by eating meat in America. A lot of factory farm raised meat doesn't have a proper distribution of that, and so this just helps get my body online with that. It reduces inflammation. It also helps with energy levels, and if you're looking to stay in ketosis or incorporate good healthy fats in your diet, fish oil is for sure one of them. And I just don't eat enough salmon, so I drink that fish oil every day as that's my primary supplement. And also they've got goat whey protein, all kinds of good stuff out there. Some butters that are mixed with little grinds of coffee in them, in to-go packets for a quick little snack or burst energy. I take them with me when I travel. Just got back from Fiji, and they were with me on the trip, and what a goddamn trip that was. Fantastic. The other thing, I always carry essential wherever I go. Right now I'm getting ready to head to Atlanta for a job, and I carry Fat Fudge with me, and you can find them at Mary Shinauda, my friend, makes it, and she's on Instagram at Fat Fudge. She's also there as Paleo Chef, and you can hit her up, and she does pre-orders on Fat Fudge. That's spelled P-H-A-T, I believe it is. Yeah, Fat Fudge, P-H-A-T, Fudge. And it's all keto-based, all just real food, real ingredients. In it is tahini, grass-fed butter, honey, cacao, turmeric, maca, ground coffee, cinnamon, ground vanilla, sea salt, and cayenne. And super low in sugars. It's got 20 grams of fat and only 2.5 grams of sugar. A total of 6 carbs only in every packet. And the serving size is 1 packet. It's not one of those bullshit things where they're like, yeah, here's a little packet and there's 4 servings in there so they can justify their nutritional panel. Anyway, Mary's badass. Check her out at Fat Fudge. What else? check out undisputedfitness.com. All kinds of great stuff there. If you're traveling through New Mexico, please come hit us up. The Caveman Coffee Cave is there and kicking. Also, we've got a new little bar on 411 Water Street in Santa Fe, New Mexico called HQ. Hit that up. It's a little local tap room. We got Nuevo Cerveza, Bloody Maria, everything from Santa Fe Brewing Company. A great little spot in town, and it's an internet cafe open all day long. So that's going off next weekend. We got Clutch Houston opening up, and you can find all that stuff out on Instagram also, at Clutch Houston, at Concrete Cowboy Houston, all the happenings down there. And we'll be opening in Chicago also, a Concrete Cowboy, come February. So all kinds of exciting stuff happening like that. I don't know if you just saw, I was just in The Accountant, Bloodfather, Westworld. God, what a show that is. I just caught up on all 7 episodes. Mind-bending. It's really maybe the most brilliant show, I think, on television. And all the different storylines and possibilities and weavings. It really brings into question so many things about humanity, alternate realities, AI, separation of life from artificial intelligence, and when does one become the other? And wow, mind-blowing. Anyway, all that's going on. And today I had a great opportunity to just sit down at Minotti's Coffee Shop with my friend Logan, who owns Deuce Gym, and just kind of talk a little bit. He's got a great book coming out called Go Right, and I really hope you enjoy this, and I hope that just a smidgen of all the greatness that is why I love Logan so much comes through in this. He's a fantastic guy, one of my best friends, and one of the brightest people that I know. I really look to for inspiration and guidance and a real measured viewpoint of things, which is important for anybody to have in their life, especially if you're a knucklehead like me. So please enjoy and love you all, and we'll talk again soon. Here's Logan Gelbrich.
A big Tait Fletcher.
Powerful Tait Fletcher.
Is a real alpha male.
Weightlifter.
He's a stuntman.
Movie star.
Robust, enthusiastic individual.
He's huge, by the way. He's like a monster person.
One of the sweetest guys I know.
He's bigger than life.
Actor.
Entrepreneur.
Fighter.
The jiu-jitsu technician.
He's also bald and he has all these tattoos. He's just a big fucking man.
A man, a myth, a legend.
Tait Fletcher.
Tait Fletcher.
Tait Fletcher.
What's up, Tait Fletcher, you bad motherfucker?
Tait Fletcher. Tait Fletcher is
Tait Fletcher.
Teddy bear motherfucking Fletcher, ladies and gentlemen.
That's Tait Fletcher, everybody.
The great Tait Fletcher. Tait the animal Fletcher. Tait the savage Fletcher. Always moving. There's no stillness with Tait Fletcher. You will find no dust.
Tait Fletcher's in the house, ladies and gentlemen. He just said the word erection.
Tait Fletcher.
Tait Fletcher's in the fucking house. Tait Fletcher!
Tait really blasts out some serious hardcore truth bombs, and I think you're really going to enjoy it.
Well, here we are in Venice with my good friend Logan Gelbrich. It's a French pronunciation.
Stop it.
You might know him as functional coach and proprietor of Deuce Gym and Original Nutritionals, fish oil beverages and goat proteins and other goodness like some nut butters that you wouldn't believe. You can find those all, of course, on cavemancoffee.com.
Oh, God.
And we're outside my friend's shop, our friend's shop, the fantastic Minotti's Coffee Shop down on Windward in Venice, California, America. And I walked up on the shop, and it's like, this is like TV when I walk around in Venice. Like, there's no reason to have earbuds in, look at your phone or anything, because you are watching television, and like the crazy that was like Satan.
Right.
I don't know.
It's the people watching World Series is what
It
it
really
is.
is.
Like, it's just stimulation. It's just
Of super rich, super bougie, super dirty, super homeless, super junkies, like everything.
And then it's like the trickery too, because the people that you think are rich are like just fronting, and then
Right.
like the
Like
dude
they're-
that's homeless like might be, or he might have 500 mil to his family name. Like you don't know.
True. I just watched a guy walk by with a yarmulke on, upside down, and dragging one foot behind, filthy as anything. I'm like, that is not a Jew, because there aren't any Jewish homeless people. That would be my contention. That's not a culture that allows for that shit. They're like, get your shit together, get off the street.
Oh my god!
There's like white guys and black guys only. Those are the homeless people.
Right.
Arabs and fucking Jews and shit like that. Like, they don't.
They're just
they're like,
dialed in.
listen, have a little goddamn pride. We're not doing that. Seems like it. Anyway, we got so much to catch up on. I feel like I am on my way to go to this movie, which I haven't signed a non-disclosure about. And I always wonder if I can mention it or not. It'll be one of the movies. I could say this. It'll be one of the movies that Dwayne Johnson's in, because he's in like 6 movies currently right now, like that he's working on.
Yeah, that's fair game. You're not.
Is that good to say?
Yeah, you're good.
And I will say it's been my second Dwayne Johnson movie of the year, which is kind of epic.
Killing the game. How'd it go the first time?
It was awesome. It was fantastic. That's one that I can't share about, because that production company, man, they'll cut your head right off. But then, right, like, this has been, it's weird to, we just got back from Fiji anyway.
Yeah.
I got, Logan had me as his third wheel in Fiji. And, man, we had the best time. Like, and I don't really know how all that happened. It seems like, the awesomeness of it all, of like where it is and being around where you're not, and that's not just a soundtrack we got going. This is just traffic in Venice. You know, you get nice stuff. We're gonna change the station in a minute. You got to wait for the light to change, though.
Yeah. No, we got it's a Ford, probably.
Is that an Explorer, maybe?
Explorer with like an airbrush paint job that instantly turns the car into like an 18th of the value. Like, it looks like a Hot Wheels car,
and full rack of lights on the top.
Yeah,
really fancy tires that look like they'd never been on a road before.
Right.
It's amazing. And he's gone.
University of Miami sticker. I didn't really see that.
Were those the colors, though?
They might have been the colors.
Yeah.
No, sorry.
I'm sorry. I don't have anything to eat. Thank you.
This is such a beautiful
got a microphone up
podcast
to my mouth.
studio that you have.
Well, it's expensive here. I don't know if you noticed the building I just tore down across the street. It was $12 million, I believe, but I just had to get rid of it. So I figured, why redecorate it? Let's just rip it down.
Right.
And so now it's just a lot that nobody can park in, because we don't need parking in California.
No. But Fiji,
can I start off and say thank you, Dozer Dave, and I want to give a shout out to the Doze Nose podcast.
Doze Nose podcast. I'm wearing his hat right now. Yeah, he's killing it. Dozer has the best voice in all of auditory experiences.
He was talking about wanting to get into film. I'm like, you need to do voice overs. He's like, I don't know how to do any of that. I'm like, I don't know how to do anything either.
Yeah.
I barely write my name anymore.
You want some silky, smooth voice action? You go to the Doze Nose podcast.
Exactly right. And he's got a bunch of really good ones, like dropping soon.
Right. Well, so you enjoyed it. I was sort of interested to see how you.
My take on it was this:
you're not going to go to Tabaru and like not like it, but there's a lot of hype. I was like nervous about the hype, because
there's a ton of hype.
I hyped the hell out of that place.
Exactly, and Sal too is Sal's like.
Hype man.
He's like Flava Flav. I mean, Flava Flav. If Sal chose to go that route, Flava Flav would be depressed because he'd never work again.
Right. It's that button that the DJ has, like, pew, pew, pew,
yeah,
like that type of hype.
Anyway, the flight over, I just found I was nervous about that at first, because it's a long time to be 6 foot plus in a plane.
Yep.
In coach.
Yep.
I fly back there to make the little people feel comfortable, though. I don't want to just be up in first class the whole way, and of course it's $24,000 or whatever it is to fly in first class. But it was nice, man. I found out I'm a good sleeper, and then when I woke up, daybreak was coming up, and I look out to the right of the airplane, and I see this break, and I feel like it was almost like I was looking at some kind of a mental twist, like a mind game kind of thing of like, where's land, where's water, where does this begin, where does this end? And I'm seeing this big wave, this huge wave, and like all this white water over all this kind of light blue coral sea. Like, it was just gorgeous, but there's no landmass around. But I'm like, there's that wave there has to be a landmass, right? Is it the darker blue or is it the lighter blue side? Which is the land, and what kind of land is that made out of? And and then I look, and there's for sure land then miles away, and I'm in the air. I'm 5 miles over the goddamn earth.
Yeah.
And And then somebody's like, yeah, there, and I hear the guys whispering to their kid behind me, there's Tavarua, there's Cloud Break.
Yeah.
And it's this biggest surf break, not the biggest surf break in the world, but it's like, I would say it's like probably a top 5 or top 10 place where surfers would like to go and surf.
Yeah.
Like there and
it's one of the
Chopu and Jaws,
Right.
like these are well known.
One of the best waves in the world.
Right.
Yeah.
Like during that time there was as we were leaving or the couple days before, there was like a big stand-up paddleboard.
Yeah, the World Championships are out there, yeah.
Which I was loved that Bjorn put me up on game. Like he told me about the feeling of, I was like, why are surfers, it's like snowboarders and skiers.
Yeah.
Like snowboarders get a lot of shit from skiers because they're like, oh, they just slide down the hill and fuck the snow up. But like, so does a bunny plow. Like it's kind of the same.
Right.
I'm like, nobody really has a good argument here.
Right.
Like everybody be safe. It's cool.
Right.
But like with surfers, there's a thing about stand-up paddleboards. And I was like, well, what's that all about? And Bjorn laid it down and he goes, the very worst people to surf with are Brazilians. They're the worst in the world. Like that, they're horrible people. They're aggressive. They don't care about the line. They don't care about any of the protocol or the niceties or having manners on the wave out in the water or any of that stuff. But the very worst are stand-up paddleboarders. And he goes, and everybody would agree with that. And then he goes, Vava would agree with that.
Yeah, this is a guy, Vava's got to sleep 4 feet away from him that night, who's Brazilian, so he's laying it down.
And then Vava's like, no, yeah, totally.
It's interesting that you saw that break from the plane because I guess it's a different type of confusing looking at it from the plane. But for me, it's crazy seeing it from the water because when you're in like a boat or on a board in the water, seeing cloud break, you don't really have an understanding of the depth of the water. Whereas from the plane,
and how close are you talking about? You've been up close in a boat?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like just to watch Kelly and them surf.
Kelly and them is Kelly Slater and
Shane
Dorian and just the best surfers in the world.
Yeah.
I mean,
but when you're in a boat, you can't really tell. You're not really aware of the depth of the water under you and like near you. Whereas from a plane, you can sort of tell, like, oh, there's some shallow areas. Like, is that land? Is it not?
The discoloration is crazy, too.
Right.
You can really see, like, when I knew what I was looking at then, and then in retrospect, after the boys were all talking about, like, what that kind of a break is, like a reef break,
right.
I was like, oh, those mad discolorations, that was as it retreated into a bigger wave. I'm looking at coral. I'm looking at basically living rock.
Exactly.
Just inches below the water.
But when you're in the water, it looks like the biggest, most beautiful wave you've ever seen in your life comes out of nowhere, like the middle of the ocean.
That it just happens.
It's just, and you can't understand. There's no context for like how that's even possible. You're sitting in what feels like the middle of the ocean and a massive set of waves with barrels that like are triple, quadruple overhead appear and disappear from nowhere into nowhere. It's like it doesn't make sense.
And like a machine.
Yeah. One
after the next, breaking the same place, all that jazz. Like, and when Vava was started to talk about that, he said like, well, the force. He's like, you can feel the force of the ocean. Sometimes days before the swell comes,
right.
Like you can, and like so guys that are water, like that's the other thing is like in jiu-jitsu I talk about like body sensitivity a lot, like in body awareness and like you can feel the energy from your opponent and what their options are, where they could go and what pressure is like.
Exactly.
But those fucking water guys, man, they're sitting in the water and they can feel the energy. They're like, oh, this is different than it was like this, and this is, and that perception is that heightened awareness. In that respect is so amazing to me. I'm in awe.
Yeah, it's cool. It's like it's not a coincidence that most surfers at any level are of the sort of highest conscious, like earth conscious people. You know, like that's not like a coincidence. Like it's like hip to be into like nature
and spiritualism.
It's like these are people that
oneness.
just can't ignore the fact that they're experiencing nature, whereas like my dumb ass has just got shoes on walking around some concrete jungle all day, you know. So it's crazy to hear those guys talk about just like a respect and a connectedness, you know. Like if you're really gonna feel the energy, what does that even mean? Feel the energy of the water for a storm that's coming? Like I don't know a
lot of those guys that are that good either, that are like I don't have a breadth of intimate knowledge of different athletes that are surfers to say like surfers are like this or whatever, but like guys like Sal, Bjorn, Vava, Shane, Kelly, like those guys are all very good, and of course Shane and Kelly are like the best. But and then meeting Laird was a similar thing, and the one thing that I noticed is that the energy of all those guys, you're calmer around them. There's like a calming aspect to their to sound gay, their energy, like the way that they are in the world, the way they interact. They breathe in a different kind of thing, and they exhale a different kind of thing, and it's palpable.
Yeah, and that seems like, I'm just guessing, of course.
And they're savage.
Oh,
there's this peaceful energy, and then they're savage.
Well, that's what I was going to connect to. Is like, you know, I guess there's different types of fighters. I don't know as much about fighting as you do, but there's also that sort of calm as well, where like you sort of earn that relaxation, right? Like a guy like Laird is an intense dude, but he does make the people around him feel calm. He has that energy about him, but I think you sort of earn that from like facing up.
He knows who he is.
A wall of waters.
When I say savage too, like if y'all don't know about the water or waves or whatever, just what I've had in my eyes opened up to in the last couple of years as far as that goes, it would be akin to like if you're a fight guy or whatever, it would be like going out and there's 6 crocodiles and you fight the crocodiles every day, and sometimes they might win, and maybe you don't die, maybe you do, and somebody dies all the time from it, and it's like, or like, I don't know, jumping out of a building on fire or something. Like it's like, and there's moments in there that either cost you or save you your life or your health and wellness.
Yeah.
And it's fucking crazy when you're talking about being double overhead on a wave and the water sucked up so that it's 3 inches deep or a foot deep where you are. Like, that's a wreck. Now you're unconscious. Now you're underwater. Now the water's leveled out over the top of you again, and now you're in 8 feet of water, and you're at it's amazing. So anyway, that's the kind of savagery that I'm talking about, is like something that I'm like, holy shit, you do that.
Yeah, and it's not even like I'm talking about a thing that I have no expertise in, but it's like, to me, it was crazy finding that it's not just about the size of the wave or that pressure, the fall, whatever. You're surfing in, like you said, like sometimes a foot of water, like it's heavy consequence. So you're having to perform at a certain level with ultra focus with heavy consequences. You know what I mean? Like, it's the reason why gets into the whole like Rise of Superman book, right? But it's like flow states that are exaggerated even in the context of flow, because the consequences of failure are so high. It's like base jumping, right? Like, there's a handful of people that do this at a high level around the world all the time, but one small error isn't like a strikeout or a knockout or you tap, you're dead, and you can't unknow that, right? So you need to go about your business with this hyper focus that is sort of and it's not something that just people, it's not like people just talk about that thing. Those are your friends. You can count and name all the people that have met that fate, right,
from that thing. It's not like I know a guy that knows a guy. It's like all those guys that are high level surfers and that are jumpers or wingsuit guys or they all know a bunch of guys that have died doing the thing that they're doing.
For sure. It's cool. That's like one of the things about flow is you have to it's not just about the challenge. Like, the peak expression of flow happens with peak preparation or like skill development. It's like one axis on the graph, and the other axis is like an equal and opposite challenge. So you can't just be any idiot and go out and find a gnarly challenge, because the challenge exceeds your preparation for that moment. So to experience the things that a guy like Shane would experience surfing a 50-foot wave is a body of work that looks like decades of preparing for that moment and then putting yourself in the position, because you need to have a challenge that's equal to your preparation. And so the massive challenges only provide flow when you have massive preparation. Or else you're just a moron out there in front of a 6-foot wave who's going to get killed.
Right.
And that doesn't feel like time slows down. You're in control of every single move. You're expressing yourself at the highest level. It looks like an idiot on a wave who's going to fall to his death.
Puts themselves and others in danger.
Right.
And that's the thing, like, I don't know, being in the water with you, like, you and I look at that, respect that, and go, yeah, that's not us. And even, like, sitting next to Little Jackson when we're watching stuff, and he's watching surfers, and he's like, well, they're, you know, some people just aren't good enough to be surfing on, and we're watching Jaws. His dad is surfing Jaws, and he says some guys just aren't good enough to be there. And he was a little, like, talking a little bit of stuff, and then I don't know, Kevin, I guess, goes, well, you get out there and do it. Show us how good you are there, smart guy. And out of this little 10-year-old's mouth is the smartest thing. He says, well, I'm not ready for that. I'm not prepared. I wouldn't be able to do that. I'm not prepared for that. But neither are they.
Right.
And I was like, that's the best answer.
I'm 10 and I'm smart enough to know that.
I know what I don't know.
Right.
And that's that thing when you talk about, like, to get an ultimate feel of flow state, you have to have sharpened your sword enough to be able to be viable in to meet the measure of whatever the contest is.
Right.
But that's where right now I see so much, you know, people that have all this confidence without any merit. And they're like, yeah, but those are, like, that's the robbery, is that you'll never fucking know. You're never going to really know what people that have really tried, would have really honed a skill, would have really thrown it all out there, are talking about when they talk about things like that. And I encourage everybody, like, all my guys are like, I want to make money. Like, I hear that all the time. People, how do you get in a place where you make, I go, you don't get in a place where you can make money. You do what you love doing, and you do it at full throttle with your fucking pedal to the floor.
Right.
And then you get yourself a reputation. You sharpen the sword for all these years, and then you have an understanding of a lot of the universal truths of life that you will never get otherwise. You have to go through the thing. And sometimes that thing, it's not like an event. It's not like 3 years. It's like a decade of stuff. It's like 15 years. It's like 20 years to get into a place where you go, oh, I get it. And I just got to say, you don't get it if you haven't done it.
Yeah. I mean, look, I'm as much of an advocate as anybody in terms of, like, people maxing out their potential and going on the journey and seeking greatness and the whole, you know, cliche thing. Like, I'm the biggest advocate for it. But the thing that just trips me up the most is when people are just baffled. They don't understand why they don't have X, Y, or Z success, or, like you said, money or whatever.
Right.
And to which I'm like, why would you expect it to be any different? Right. You're a guy named Jeff who's unremarkable as fuck, and you've done nothing to earn the outcomes that you're looking for. Like, right. This is clear as day to me, right? Like, it would be crazy for someone, in my opinion, to go around wondering why, you know, the bank account doesn't look the way that they want it to look, or they don't have the success that they want, or the results that they want, right. Or the whole fitness conversation, the body that they want, or whatever. It's like, man, I don't get it, man. It's like hard out here. It's like, well, did you expect a different result? Because this is crazy to me.
Well, and then also I go, they're like, what can I do different? And I'm like, you could tie your shoes, like maybe tuck your shirt in. It's because those guys miss that it's all detail oriented. There's no big fucking thing to do. There's these details that you have to smooth and polish, and you have to have dialed in. And I don't want to get it twisted either and go, well, that doesn't mean that you can't experience that. Like I can get that in a lot of different realms because I'm not good at very much stuff. Like, so I could start off with surfing, say, and in a couple of years, I could experience different gauges of a flow, and maybe I'm never ever going to get good enough to where the consequences are going to be so steep that I die. Like, of course, there can be freak accidents or this or that. Yeah. But, like, and so everybody can do it. All that is required is that you try, you're diligent, you work hard, you're persistent and relentless in the pursuit of getting excellent at a thing. Now, excellent for you and excellent for Kelly Slater is going to be different. Like, it's like just a different conversation, but it doesn't mean that it's unavailable to you. But the thing that I think is interesting at those top end guys like that, like there's this dude that just jumped 5 miles over the earth out of a plane with no chute and landed into a goddamn net in the desert. Right? And lived. And it was all great, successful. Nobody's ever done it before. Biggest free fall jump ever. But, like, that's a rush. Like, I get the feeling that he's after doing that. And I go, what do you got to do next? Because guess what? Jumping off a 10-foot building that might be exciting for me and be like, oh, okay, gonna go do this is like, that's not a thing that's turning him on.
Yeah, that's the conundrum.
It's like talking to Brian Stan and go,
yeah.
Do you have to get like calm down like before you go and fight or whatever?
Right.
And he's a combat veteran with hundreds of gunfights behind him, or Tim Kennedy, and those guys are like, no, I need to get hyped up. Like this is a exciting event for me to go fight at the UFC, which is crazy. Like
the things about this that stress people out don't stress me out because
his consequences have been seeing his brother blown up next to him or whatever.
Right.
Like it's just not that.
Right. Yeah, it's it's like self-awareness, right? Like you said, well, I'm not good at a lot of stuff too. It's like, but you're also, your expectations are clear because you're a self-aware individual. You know, you wouldn't go out to Jaws or Chopu and be like, well, why am I not having success out here? This is
not
crazy.
Even in a
you know
boat.
what I mean?
Like
but you got you know what I mean? But you got a bunch of like, weird fans that hit you up like, well, when I do my podcast, no one listens. You know what I mean? It's like, well, why would you think people would listen? Like, do you have anything to say? Right. Are you a remarkable person? This is not, life doesn't just like happen to you and you just check out the hand that you're dealt and like, wow, this is interesting. Like, I'm unsuccessul. Like, what do you have to show for that? I
think there's that thing too of there's a disconnect of cause and effect. And I've erred and do still on the side of, kind of disrespecting or disregarding past achievements and going, well, it's just stuff that I've done. Mm-hmm. It's like and going, no, there's everything, and then I heard, I think it was Chael Sonnen maybe said, somebody asked him, how do you get prepared for a 5-round fight? Like, 29 minutes of a sprint basically. And how many months out do you have to start training for that? And what's your preparation been? And his answer was the best answer I ever heard. He goes, my whole life.
Yeah.
You can't just put that kind of pressure on a guy in a few months and get him to rise to the occasion. Right. It's my whole life of every competition, every broken toe, every upset, every win, everything that built me up to be able to be the guy that can answer that call.
Yeah.
And it's important to recognize both sides. I think it's important to recognize all the greatness in you, but it's all the paradox. It's that paradox piece of life.
Well, yeah, I think that comes back to awareness. Like you're never as good as you think, and you're definitely never as bad as you think. And the more in tune you are with yourself, and there are tools to get in tune. When you go through these rites of passage, right? You take on a challenge and you deal with the journey. You start to have a more accurate picture of yourself. I think that's part of the reason why, like when you talk about the problem with men and women, especially in this country, that grow up and they never go through a rite of passage, is the mirror that you're looking at isn't always that accurate, right? Because you haven't had to ask big questions and look closely at that mirror, and it doesn't always have to be fighting or a sport or whatever, but like if you don't go through something, commit to a rite of passage, I think, invokes this idea of like a lengthy commitment, of a certain pursuit of excellence in an environment that makes that a real challenge, And so when you commit to it, you got to keep showing up, and things don't go your way, and then you got to still be you and answer to that and deal with that. And an individual that goes through an experience like that or experiences like that and continually puts themselves in a position to learn those lessons is like a Laird or like a Kelly, where they're generally more calm, they're confident in the arenas that they need to be confident in, but they're also experienced enough to be humble because they've been humbled.
And that's why they're easy to be around.
Yeah, but then you get people that have never had those questions asked of themselves, or they've never, hypothetically or theoretically been punched in the face.
Right. I was just thinking that same thing. It's like that guy, that's his problem. He's never been slapped before for being a dick.
Yeah, so I think self-awareness is like the best.
I was thinking about that and stress and where you put yourself, like, and everybody wanting to fight against stress, and then everybody going, cortisol levels go up or what, like all this stuff. And I was thinking about stress and like definitions and like even awareness of the word, and the like potent focus stress is such an important thing to put ourselves under, I think. And it's always beneficial, it's always helpful, and it always yields a positive result. And then the stress that I think that people talk about, and they're like, I'm so stressed. And it's always when I see people harried and they're like, I'm going from this appointment to that appointment, and I'm just so, and then you can feel that stress. You're like, ooh, this is hard to be around. And that's always imagined stress. That's always the demons in your head that don't really exist. And it almost needs a different word. They're so different.
Yeah, I think that's just somebody sort of without a plan who's generally mentally weak. Like the stress, I think, that you're talking about is the critical stress of adaptation. I think when it all comes down to it, a human being is just a living being that's trying to evolve and survive. And if you want to get super, the 10,000 foot view is like, we got one job, and it's to evolve. And sometimes it looks like, fucking and having kids and doing the thing, but it's something deep rooted in our DNA that in order to create meaning and accomplish something in your life is to evolve yourself and therefore your species. And in a modern time, that looks a lot less primal and a lot more like applying stressors that force adaptation. And that, in a corny way, can happen in the gym, that can happen consciously through your relationships or whatever. But stress is prerequisite to adaptation. Like the system, the body, the mind won't change unless there's a stress upon it. So like you're saying, there's something to what you're saying where it's like we feel like stress is the enemy. Well, the surest way to die or de-evolve is to put yourself in a vacuum or on your couch.
Yeah, think of veal.
You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, it's an unstressful environment. And some of the people that we want to be around, the people that excite us, the people that we put on our TVs and on our posters or whatever, are people that put themselves in positions, stressful positions, to evolve themselves. Or the details of how they did that are less important, but stress is like where it's at.
Yeah.
Like I feel like I even
I feel like it made all the difference.
Yeah,
go do something hard every day that you're scared of, that causes stress, boom, and then you go through it and you go, oh, and you like, it's that catharsis kind of thing, like that you can create that all the time.
Yeah, and I feel like I can be susceptible to take that to like an extreme or whatever, and just with my background, you learn this positive attachment to stress and adversity to the point where you can like seek it out and love it and want it to be everywhere. And if life's easy, it's like sort of as a red flag, and that's not always the most healthy either, but at least having a perspective that appreciates it, I think is a bare minimum.
It's awareness. You got to go into the red at one point in order to have that balance, I think. And then you get to control your life. You get to be in control of your emotions and your thoughts and your physicality and all that kind of stuff. I was thinking that about. So when we were in Fiji, we watched the election on TV happen, and this new epoch that opens up for America or for the world or for whatever, and it's either the very best thing or it's the very worst thing, and there's all these divisive ideas and not a lot of unity probably seen. And everybody thinks it means something. Everybody has an opinion about what it means. And when I look at that, and people cry, like, I mean, people are inflamed. Mm-hmm. And then the incumbent protests that happened afterwards over a process that, like, all the people that were part of that process agreed upon, like, this is the process. Yep. And then there's sour grapes. It's kind of like saying, I'm going to leave it up to these three judges, and these three judges have this opinion. Well, that's the agreement. You're going to leave it up to those three judges if there's not a decisive victory or whatever. It's like, that's the process. It's like, and then there's all this stuff afterwards. And I thought, like, the crying, the hysteria, all that is like, it's important to feel it's important to be in touch with how you feel about things. But at the same point, to be controlled by external events like that, it seems like you're weak in a way. It seems like not in charge of your own faculties even. And it's also a stress that doesn't really exist. It's like you're pointing at a ghost and saying, like, the phantom is against us or something, as opposed to like going into yourself and going, here's the ground where I stand on. How do I make this ground better? And go. It's like a diversion of your own responsibility, I think, in a way.
Look, I mean, there's so many layers here. It's so complex. Like, I think people might hear this and be like, well, at some point you need to stand up, and there's all that. Like, for sure, you stand up for what you believe in and, have a standard for what you want or whatever. But what you're getting at is, I think, something different, which is, there are things in our lives which we can control, and then there are going to be millions and millions and thousands or whatever the number is of external factors that are outside of our control. And it is a diversion to spend any amount of time harboring and worrying and putting energy into the things that you can't control. And without deflecting my feelings and responsibilities about who was elected and who wasn't elected, I can say fully that I'm taking this shit to the mountain, regardless of who's the president and what country I'm in and what's going on. Because I can't really remember, and look, again, some asshole is going to be like, well, it's slippery slope, you know what I mean? Like, it's how it starts, When we got Hitler running the thing, you're going to be it's like, whatever. It's like, sure, but I can't remember a single other person, let alone the president of the country, affect how I'm gonna go about my day.
Right.
You know what I mean? And and that's just like a real clarity on what can I control and what can I not control.
And I think it brings people. It's nice because it pulls the cover off a lot of people that are like, well, no, fuck Muslim, or it goes, oh, so you're a racist. I got it. Okay, or whatever. And I feel like also I want to, like, it's funny when you talk like this and they go, oh, so you wanted Hillary in. And I'm like, you are such a dummy. Like, the people are so dumb. It's like, well, either this or that. And somebody says, well, they sent me a thing and they said, praise Jesus, and we got a guy that came in and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, wow, I don't know what Jesus got to do with it. And I'm not stoked about it. And he's like, well, it was the lesser of two evils, Tait. And I go, I don't fuck with evil. Like, I'm not going for the lesser of any evil. And I'll either abstain or make another choice. Thank you very much. And this whole thing that people don't want to be on the winning team, they're like, well, vote for this one is not, is like, if you don't vote for this one, then you get that one. It's like, you make a choice. You're a goddamn American. Stand up and fucking. Actually, I wonder what it would look like if we were in a different kind of position to be potent with our vote. Like, if everybody really believed that, instead of all the discourse that we hear about, like, well, if you vote for Hillary, or if you vote for Gary Johnson, or if you vote for Bernie Sanders, that would mean that Trump is closer to being president, and the people that were on that camp, and then the other camp, that would mean Hillary. Like, man, I think they're both caustic. And when I was looking at it, like, my real feelings about it, I was like, I figured Hillary was going to win, because I thought, man, they bought off the DNC, and I think maybe the GOP and the DNC are talking together, and it was all to position her, and I don't know what kind of fuckery goes on behind the scenes. But I thought, it'll be status quo, and here we go, and Hillary will be the same, whatever. Yeah. And I was really surprised when it was close, and then when he won, I was like, wow, that's a trip. And then I was like, what a cool thing, though, that it opens up, too, because I really do, like we were talking about earlier with Nicely, and going, yeah, this could be Dwayne Johnson, Kevin Hart 2020, or Kim and Kanye. It's like, it opens it up for any kind of anything, and maybe that's better, to move away from politics and political components like that.
It's hilarious and awful, and the details of it are like brutal, But if we're gonna be here and that's gonna be out of our control, I am interested in hearing like what positive could come from it, and that is a positive that can come from it. But it also doesn't mean that like I'm hyped. And if you're still on, like, what is it? It's November 19th right now when we're recording this. Like, if you're still posting on Facebook about, here we go, like, see what we got, it's like, you need to not be that excited, I think, for the other option, because you're on notice too if you think that was an ideal scenario. Like, step up your standards for excellence, and you're suspect to me, in my opinion, if you're excited about either the two what options, lesser of two evils, whatever you want to call it.
And for me, it's get out of the complaint.
Yeah, like,
Because at a certain point, if the other one would have been there, you'd have complained about that too, probably. And it's like, I don't see anybody that, like, I feel like on Facebook and stuff like that so much that people look at like what they're against, and that's how they define themselves, and they're like, well, I'm against this and I'm against that and fuck this guy, and it's like, and nobody about anything. You're just about what you're not about, which makes you a negative space, like you're a zero. And I feel like that you know, when the more I'm into my day, the less that I know about or care about what's going on, because whether it was George Bush or Bill Clinton or whomever, nobody's paying my cell phone bill. Like, you got to make it work however.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that are really bored, in my opinion, or they're so dialed, their life is so money, that they have so much time.
I'm like, where do you get time to read all these articles?
I mean, it's insane, you know. And then you're gonna find your favorite website that's gonna pump out a bunch of stuff that makes you sound correct. It's like, you guys are all missing the point. Why don't you get busy doing something for yourself, you know?
I also feel like there's a big spiritual component to it in regards to this is a comedy sketch of a reality that we're in. Like, this is like
for sure.
It is a weird magic trick, and there's just something else. This can't be real, and I can't be affected by it, because there's got to be an elevation. Like this, that's the other thing I think that's nice, is it pushes people to an elevation of their soul. It pushes people to an elevation of their thinking, and you've got to transcend all these old ideas, I think, about like what this means or what that means, because those are just stories, man.
Yeah, I mean, looking optimistically too, like this is what I was talking about the other day, is like I'm into it getting worse, you know, because I feel secure. Like, I'm gonna figure out my life. Like, I'm into it getting worse, because right now there's a certain awareness. At least people are like, wow, this is insane. Like, I don't know how we got here. And
I think it's cool we know who everybody is too.
Yeah, well, maybe we'll like you said, sort of raise our level of awareness or consciousness in this thing, because you know, like I've said before, we got the candidates that we deserve as a society.
We sure did.
You know what I mean? Like
our chickens have come home to roost.
Yeah, like, well, you know, watching I watched the first debate just to see what's up. I want to see these people speak in the same room. No, that wasn't going to, like, you know, I was going to learn something or whatever. But the conversation is as simple and dumb as we're ready and willing to hear. You know, like, if we don't evolve the conversation that we want to have, then our leaders are going to always meet us where we're at. You know what I mean? And we're not demanding a certain type of thing. So
meet us where we're at. That's great.
We have a reality show of a political system at this point, and it makes sense to us because we're idiots, you know.
Well, and that's what I don't know if it was in the 20s or 30s, and there's a great quote about nobody lost money on underestimating the intelligence of the populace.
Yeah.
And I feel like in those kinds of ways, I feel like we get out into the world, and you can shake it up in whatever kind of way, but like that whole piece about money is the end of it. Like where I go, oh, well, people are like, oh, this is a good guy, this would be good for the society. It's like, it doesn't matter. It's whatever garners the most money. It's all about the greed and the economy of things that the powers that be are built upon and will keep going, just like a biological entity desires and needs, and its whole purpose is to continue and to evolve. So is we've created with this extreme kind of voracious capitalism, that kind of a biological entity that just eats it up and chews it out and only wants a profit that goes up. And like when we see that, we look at like the Indians right now and the pipeline that's going in. We didn't have one candidate talk about that anywhere. It was the biggest thing happening in the country right now, and nobody's bringing that up. And you look at Standing Rock and what's happening there, and you go, oh, that's because they're complicit in the money. Yeah. And everybody's complicit in the money. And you look at, I love what Donald Trump taught me, man. And he said, they said at one point, they go, you're down in the polls. And he goes, no, I'm not. Like, and which was awesome. Like, he'll just say, fact, or whatever. Like, yeah. I'm like, wow.
I'm actually not down in the polls.
He's trying to do magic.
That's your opinion. I'm doing great in the polls. I feel great in the polls. I promise you, I'm great in the polls.
And then they look at him, And they go, well, here. And he goes, no. He says, I don't care about those ratings, popularity ratings. He says, I care about Nielsen ratings, and I am killing it. And like he was so stoked about that. And like, so whatever inflammatory thing and that's what the networks, that's what the news networks care about. Ooh, I don't care if you're going to give the cure to cancer, AIDS, benevolence, and goodness to mankind on Channel 6. But if we're selling more views over on Channel 7 and we're just giving out cancer and AIDS to everybody, and everybody's dying, everybody's turning to Channel 7.
Yeah.
Like, and that's the thing is like that what tips the balance is not the goodness, is not rational, is not intelligence. It's fucking money. And if you can get more views, that's more money. And so like when you say we get what we paid for with our presidency, it's not about Trump being the president. It's about the consciousness. Like anybody would be like the very worst person is who we will hire for the job, because we are subpar as a consciousness. We want to watch train wrecks. You want to watch NASCAR because you want to see somebody flip. You want to watch fucking skateboarders fall and crack their nuts on a railing. It's like you want to watch people get their heads cut off. Like that's the problem.
I'm not even mad at the money though. Like I feel like
I'm not mad at money at all.
No, but I mean like I feel like the problem that shows up is to use Nassim Taleb's language on this, you know, like a lack of skin in the game, right? So when you look at I think the reason why we get upset or balk at the idea of like a general idea like greed, or you know, when we see this in politics, is not the dollar signs and the numbers next to these people's names. It's the lack of skin in the game, meaning risk. If I'm not exposed in my upside, right? Like if I can be a politician and do awful and still be safe, that's a problem because there's a lack of skin in the game. If you have an opportunity to make hundreds of millions of dollars, I don't think I would ever balk at that, as long as the way that you're going about that comes with sort of an equal and opposite risk, right? And what we've done, like on the corporate side, or a lot of these sort of stereotypical American problems that we associate with money and greed, is isolating people and making safe harbor without skin in the game, to where a politician can be awful and they're paid and safe for life. A corporation can, you know, Wells Fargo, my lovely bank, who, you know, has cost me thousands of dollars before on like clerical errors and things like this. They can be at the center of a national accusation of creating,
not even an accusation, that's
they're convicted for creating millions of fake accounts to meet their quarterly numbers or whatever, and which is fine. I willingly chose to go with this corporation to do my banking with, but the problem is when that happens, there's not an equal and opposite risk to them, because they're insulated by the sort of relationships we have between politics and corporations. They are asymmetrically avoiding risk. They don't have skin in the game, so they can fuck up and without consequences.
They can behave however.
Whereas like an entrepreneur like myself, I have an opportunity to create freedom and make an unlimited amount of money, but the risk is everything,
right?
You know, and so politicians,
you're thoughtful about, like, if somebody were to come to you and say, hey dude, you could go ahead and pad your accounts this way, but the FBI maybe would come if they found out. You'd be like, I'm going to choose to not do that.
It's a great equalizer, right?
Yeah.
And people start acting in accordance with some value and the same values that we would referee them by, or referee them with our dollars, our votes, our whatever. But if you remove,
it's weird that with banking there's no checks and balances.
It's insane, and it's
a business that is about checks and balances. Like it's like, and you guys don't have any of that,
right? Or the United States government hasn't figured out in my entire lifetime how to operate a balanced budget. But we're all expected to, you know what I mean? And so
we'll blow money away all over the place, but there's still no, like, our infrastructure, we're poisoning people in Flint or whatever. It's like there's all these things, and you're like, how does this, there's no...
So when people go around, like, the reason why I bring this up is because people go around and be like, it's the money, everybody's greedy,
Sure.
and it's like usually the people that are saying that are some unsuccessful poor people
Sure.
who don't want to make some shit happen in their
Yep.
life. It's not the money and who's rich and who's not. It's the prevalence of skin in the game or not. And if you don't operate in your industry or your job or your career with real risk, real skin
Yeah.
in the game, you, in my opinion, don't have a voice. You shouldn't have a
It's
voice.
the same thing that we were talking about. Like, there is no flow state without a consequence. You don't get any of the good shit
Right.
if there's not a high consequence to pay, and if there's not work up to be able to merit that consequence.
Right.
Like, you have to earn the consequence.
Yeah,
like,
it's a fake reality.
And
You know,
so
if you
now
live
we-
in
yeah.
if you live in only upside, it's
Yeah.
not reality, and that's, I think, where the root of our uneasiness is. That's why we don't like, you know, there's no term limits, right? For
Right.
you know,
there was a
our-
guy I just heard a senator, and he was talking about term limits. He goes, "Yeah, there is. Every 4 years, I have to get elected again. It's called a democracy. That's what." And I'm like, that is such an easy answer to give. I don't buy that, man. That's not the same.
Yeah, it's gnarly. So I think, and that just comes back to deep down, we want accountability, or to use a bigger word, like, or bigger idea, like justice. You know what I mean? Like, we all like a rags to riches story.
I feel like we're not getting it. We're not going to get justice. I'm kind of okay with it. I don't believe in it, but I believe that I can get justice in my own little sphere and world, and I'm going to do that. And I feel like the world's on fire, and we're headed towards a cliff, and whatever. That's what it is. I'm going to be happy up until that day.
Yeah, but you're also taking responsibility for your life. You're not
Fully. That's where I get the best goods, though. That's the trick. Is that I used to think that avoiding that, like, I don't want responsibility, I don't want commitments, I don't want, like, I used to think that was freedom. And the freedom is being fully involved in life and fully
for
involved
sure.
in the risk and all that.
For sure.
Like, every dollar I make, I put back out, and I'm like, let's fucking go and make something else happen. Let's make this happen. Let's, you know.
Yeah.
What was your impetus? You're in the middle of a book right now.
Yep.
And so stoked about it.
You know what?
What was your drive to do it, and how did the idea about what your theme would be change from the idea of, like, I'd like to write a book to putting pen to paper, or did it?
Well, I think this book is something that I just have to write, and so I believe so strongly in it. You know, most everything that I've done, you know, we'll say business-wise in the last few years of my life has been based on an observation or a problem that I observe, right? So the gym is sort of an answer, in my opinion, to a completely ass-backward billion-dollar fitness industry where there's a lot of people slinging some weird vibes and not a lot of results. And so that was just a rebuttal to that. Same thing with Original Nutritionals and just the weirdness that we see in the sports nutrition space. And what I observe is almost like pandemic issues where populations are just underachieving. We're choosing to be
She fell for that shit.
We're choosing to be like that guy.
Venice is a trip.
Yeah.
Bunch of 16-year-olds with loud voices, skinny little arms, and no necks.
So like we're choosing to self-sacrifice and give up and be suboptimal people, and that's enough to, I think, anger me. But on top of that, we're telling ourselves that this is smarter and more responsible, right? And I think that every decision we make is puts us somewhere on a spectrum where, you know, in the book I'm saying as you move towards the right, you're moving more towards self-respect, towards challenge, towards complexity, towards your peak expression, and towards the left we'll say it is perceived as safer, more
status quo.
Status quo would speak to like social norms. We're avoiding risk, perceived risk, and you know, the problem that I observe is that we get plenty of suggestions to be our best, but they're always it's an appeal to your emotion. You know, it's some pep talk. Hey man, go for it. You know,
it's like taking a pre-workout. It's like if you need a stimulant to work out, maybe you're not really a workout there or something. Like, is that what you're talking about?
Sort of. I mean, it's always this like, you only live once, man. Like go for it. You know, follow your dreams. Blah blah blah. And it's just, that would be fine if it worked, but people don't follow through with that. It's not enough, because at some point you get to a place where you say, I really want this for my life, but I'm going to be smart and I'm going to do this instead.
Be careful. Take the security. So what do you think is the answer to that then? Like, if you're saying like, well, you know, it's not these little bits of like, oh, I got fired up by a talk and then everything changed, because doesn't have substantial legs.
Well, the answer to it is to use the pseudo logic that we have. The reason we justify, you know, becoming an accountant when all you want to do is create music or, you know, be a school teacher or whatever, is the real logical approach is to recognize that you cannot find a commitment to a pursuit stronger. You can't work longer hours. You can't work as deeply. You can't experience flow or peak human expression. You are less resilient to adversity when you make decisions that send you towards the left. And so it's
you're talking about bringing up an awareness then.
Yeah, there's a utilitarian-based argument for pursuing your dreams or your peak expression.
But don't you feel like there's that time too where you're like, I don't even give a fuck, I just want to sit on the, you know what I mean? There's like apathy creeps in everywhere, it seems like. I mean, and not to say that what you're doing, not to argue the point, but like knowledge doesn't suit me in a lot of ways. Like, sure it needs knowledge, but that's not the furnace that keeps the engine going. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Knowing better, we all know smoking's bad for you. People smoke anyway. You know what I mean? And all that.
For sure. What I'm saying is that if you're going to justify marrying someone that doesn't challenge you and make you better, or take a career that doesn't challenge you and make you better, or is not part of your idealized lifestyle, you don't take on lifestyle practices that speak to your peak expression, you normally do so because there's a risk avoidance factor, there's some fear involved, I won't be successful, etc. What we know about this is that, you know, you, however many years ago, couldn't have worked, I would guess you couldn't have worked any other job, the number of hours with the diligence and the deep awareness practice that you did with fighting.
Right.
You couldn't have faked that.
Right.
You know? And I really believe that we all have things that we want. You know, there's things that we really want in life and things that really interest us. And if you listen to that curiosity, you have an opportunity to create a body of work that makes you resistant to fucking life, to the challenges that make us scared to do it in the first place. You know, right. Like there's plenty of examples like this, you know, from Alberto, the hat maker guy. You know, there's no reason on paper. Like, you make a pros and cons list, you're that guy, you make a pros and cons list.
Right.
When you're a third generation hat maker in Mexico, that I'm going to move to the United States and not know the language. And not only am I going to be successful as a hat maker in a country where people don't fucking wear hats and don't even respect your weird art expression of hats, you got a huge list of cons and nothing in the pro column. Well, this guy went for it, and now he is completely resistant to a recession. He's resistant to a emotional roller coaster of a breakup. He can lose all the money in his bank account. He can experience any sort of adversity that the life presents him, and guess what? He's the most prolific hat maker on the entire country, and right now he doesn't have enough hours in the day to make $4,000 hats for people, right? Like, and I know that guy, man, and he couldn't possibly develop a utility like that working any other job. He just couldn't do it.
Or taking anybody else's advice of being safe.
You know, and that's not just a personal thing either. It's like I
think the question becomes, what are we living for?
Well, I think
are you living to be safe? Are you living to like?
Well, the reason why I'm so confident that everybody has an understanding of this is because we are sense-making beings. Whether our behavior shows it or not, no one lives and dies and never asks the question, what's the point? You know, we're not...
Sure.
And the joke I always say is like, what were you doing instead? Like fucking laundry? Like, you thought about this.
Right.
You're displacing this question for safety, and that's in our DNA, man. Like, I don't blame people for being scared or whatever. That's
well, you have to work against it for sure. Totally. That's the thing.
It's an uphill battle for sure. But the good news is this argument that I'm presenting is that it's actually more logical. It's smarter to follow that thing because
I feel like there's those markers, right, about if you're doing it wrong.
You're just less useful if you go the other way. And
you're less strong, you're less sexy, you're less happy, you're less like able. And because the thing is going to change too, I think. You know, that's the thing to think about is like whatever the thing is you're doing is going to change. And if you haven't built a mechanism within you of how to fall in love with your life right now or how to be excellent at something right now, then the chances that you can take that and supplant that onto another idea or something is almost zero.
Oh, totally. So the skills are transferable when you go about this because you're learning lessons that aren't available to people that are conceding a genuine expression of themselves, right? Like if I just mail it in and say, look, you know what, like I really want to teach English abroad, but I don't really know how to do that, and I majored in human resources, and I can get this job at this corporation that I didn't even really knew existed, and when I go to work every day, I can't really tell you what I do necessarily, but I know I get a paycheck. That seems like you are creating some safety for yourself. I got insurance, I got a salary. I've avoided the things that I was worried about if I went after this goal, you know, for the example, teaching abroad.
Right.
Well, the problem with that is it's perceived risk because that's actually the most risky thing you can do because if you get 10, 20, 30 years down the road and your unremarkable career doesn't exist anymore, you don't have any compelling reason for anybody to hire you for anything else. You haven't learned anything. You haven't developed a craft that is transferable in any way. Whereas if you are a person that goes for it, man, I'm going to move to whatever it is, Malaysia.
You also haven't built resiliency within yourself.
Totally. And these are the transferable skills I'm talking about.
Right.
You find a way to get on that airplane, you go to whatever it is, Malaysia, and teach English to little kids, and you know, struggle through your dream. Well, even if it doesn't work out, something happens. You now have a skill set that is transferable to other things. I'm an individual that takes action. I'm an individual that's committed. I have a natural resource to create opportunity for myself. I'm committed. These are all hireable skills. You're a person that has businesses. Like, what are you trying to hire? You're trying to hire deep-rooted assets in someone that are much more foundational to the person than the type of software they used at their last job. Like, none of this fucking shit matters, right? It's like, who are you? Like, what are you about, right? And when you, in like the book, when you're going to the right or making decisions that put you towards the peak expression of yourself, you make yourself sort of unfuckwithable to the world around you. You're a compelling asset, not to just to yourself, but to your community. You know, the example I talk about in the book is, I dove into Dave Grohl's career, right? And it's not just more advantageous to him that he makes music.
Right.
You need him to make music.
Right.
You cannot afford for Dave Grohl to be making poke bowls right here. Because the utility available to the world is a massively diminished level of utility, and the reason why he has developed the skills and the assets and the career that has been able to not just affect his life and his family's life but millions of other people's lives is because he chose something that he loves so much that he could put in more hours than you could ever fucking put into anything at a deeper practice. He could have his bandmate kill himself and lose all of his money, get divorced, not have a studio, have to start from the ground up and make a Foo Fighters album where he played every single instrument on the first album and laid down the vocals and shopped it around, and it was so compelling that he had to go around and make a band because he had a fucking major record label deal for something that he just made up in his garage, and that is, talk about risk, or talk about all the things that you justify not chasing your dreams for. Like, that is something that is resistant to anything that the world's going to throw at you. You think Dave Grohl's got to worry about finding a job or whatever the fuck you're worried about?
I feel like what you're talking about too is being an artist. Like, and is everybody an artist? And then some of us deny our art in a way so that we can go towards comfort and go, well, this is going to be more comfortable or safer or whatever. Like, it feels like that a lot, because if you're an entrepreneur, if you're doing anything, like if you have an interest and you're like, this is my interest, I'm going to do the thing that's my interest, even though it doesn't pay me anything or it doesn't go anywhere. Like, there's a huge component to that I think works on the energies of the universe in a way that I can't even really quantify or talk about.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, think about the human qualities that you're building upon and relying on to piggyback on whatever comes next.
Right.
It was courage, it was commitment, it was integrity, it was discipline, right? But if I cop out and I'm Wells Fargo and I choose the comfort of fucking, cashing checks at the local teller thing, or I'm making poke bowls, I'm choosing comfort. I'm resistant to challenge. I'm fearful in my actions. I'm reactionary. I'm not evolving. There's no challenge there, right? So even if that doesn't work out, I'm just supporting more and more awful human attributes.
Right.
And so it starts to take this thing that seems like a choice of like, oh, I'm feeling risky, I'm gonna fucking try to be an astronaut, or I'm feeling like I'm more of a straight-laced guy and I'm just trying to be smart, so I'm gonna put on some scrubs and work in a really popular medical industry. It's like, yo, that's not really what's happening here. You're not being intelligent by that. What I'm telling you is you're choosing to be a subpar version of yourself, and you're actually open to a lot more liability than you think.
Do you think it's for everybody?
It's for everybody, and I'm telling you don't have a choice, is what the book is saying. This is not like, if you want to do something crazy with your life, follow X, Y, and Z. Right. It's like you don't have a choice. We are, I think, in mass choosing to not just be less happy and less useful to ourselves and our community, but like more exposed to risk. It's a sad tale when you think you're following all the right directions and you go to the right college and you're in the right fraternity or sorority.
We have so many bad messages.
Yeah, you get the right job or whatever, and then you're 50 and you haven't done anything.
Is there a generation that's done it right? Or is this a time, like, it's like an ageless problem?
I think that's a conversation that always shows up where everybody hates on the up and coming generation. I feel like it's always been there, and some people are pussies, and some people don't have it in them to go, I'm going to do this. For sure. I mean, I think there's culturally, we all feel pressures of like social norms, you know what I mean? And I think some cultures more than others are more stringent in what is construed as normal, you know, like in the 50s, I would imagine it being a little bit more of a faux pas to pursue your true interests in the face of maybe a more blue collar social acceptance.
And this is in America too, like, which is like, it's a different thing than if you're a Cambodian kid in a village somewhere. Like, it's like life is so easy at this time. The easier life is, I would make the argument that you have to be more careful about your goddamn choices, because if you're just trying to get food and trying to get freedom or trying to get whatever it is, like, those are things that are necessities for life, like, that you need to go on. But when you have choices, now you need to be careful about your choices.
Yeah, and the beauty of it is it's always relative, right? Like, if you're a high caliber individual who is extremely developed and master in multiple domains, your expression, like your choices now are even more challenging in terms of pursuing that. Like, this doesn't end. Like, something I talk about in the book is, like, there are no finish lines in this thing. I mean, how hilarious is it that I'm even writing this, right? Like, I'm a 30-year-old person who on paper really hasn't done anything worth writing a book on how to live your life,
except try it every day in your life. And a lot of people don't try.
So that is the thing, is like, it's misguided to even think that there's a finish line in this thing. There's no, like, summit. It just continually gets harder, and you wouldn't want it any other way.
And,
really.
Well, and I don't know that I mean, as you get better, like, to say it gets harder, it's like, I think as you get better, maybe the pressure gets greater, but you become better equipped to deal with the pressure in a way. And I gotta, like, what I think of the whole time through, like, when you're saying you don't have a choice in this and that, like, I don't have a choice. I feel like I don't have a choice in a way, otherwise I rot into depression, despair, and I want to kill myself. Like, is the option for me. And so what do I need to do to insulate myself so that I can be well and stay alive? And part of that thing, and it's however it sounds, but has been everything that I've done. And like, really, I think about that. It really dawned on me when I was working out at your gym at Deuce one day, and I just had a fantastic conversation with Josh Goldstein, and then Nick comes up, and I'm talking to McCoy for a while, and then we go our ways, and then we go and do our work or whatever. And while I'm working, I'm just thinking, this is why it's worth it. It's worth it to put yourself in a position in Venice, California, and one of the most expensive places to live in the world is, like, on the coast of California. And to be, because conversations of inspiration like that resonate and ripple into my whole life, that's where I find them. And, like, and wherever that is, like, whether it's in Dubuque or fucking Miami or wherever, like, it's important, I think, because I wouldn't be me without the community that's around me.
Right.
The personal thing is the responsibility is I get to choose what that community is, and
that evolves, right? Like, what if the people that you were around weren't evolving themselves,
right?
And that conversation becomes less and less,
or only evolving in a certain way,
right? And it does less and less in terms of this sort of gravitational pull to demand more of you. What if you felt like you were pulling this group along, and then that would sort of lose its luster? You gotta
get tired.
You gotta put yourself in a situation to be exposed to people that are gonna make you better. Like, that's the evolution of it, right? It continually has to go. Hopefully, you're around people that are also on a certain trajectory, but like you said, that environment has to be challenging. That's like part. I mean, it's not just a flow state thing. Like, that's part of the requirement of.
Well, that's me still sharpening my sword.
Right.
That's still that like that's what that never stops either. It's not like, oh, you sharpen your sword this long and then you just coast into it. It's like, for me, it's like doing that. It's like I'm at Jackson's gym and I'm there and I'm with Mr. Winklejohn and Greg Jackson for like over a decade. Like, and I'm putting myself in that position. I'm in Eddie Bravo's school at my 10th plant. And I'm with these guys. Like, and so you're learning and you're growing in that. But then when I'm not doing that thing anymore, I'm not a fucking hobbyist. I'm not doing that as a like, that's my job. And so as my job changes, I need to be with people that are potent in this thing. And like, what and so then as my life has changed and grown, which I'm old enough that it has, that it mutates in these different things. And then my awareness, what you're talking about, is like, man, I value you so much, because it's like being around and being aware of these different aspects of life, of like, here's what you need now to grow and nurture yourself this way and that way and this way. And that is an ever-changing conversation, man. Well, there's no stagnation.
Yeah, that's the perfect sort of example of like how that evolves. You know, if people want to simplify you all the time, I'm sure, right? And they would, from a distance, look at your life and say, like, yeah, well, of course. I mean, this guy was a successful fighter, black belt, UFC, whatever. Of course he could go into business or have a podcast, whatever, and it would just be successful because, 1 + 1 = 2. And that's not the case. There are things that
Can we pause right now and you need to look over your shoulder? I mean, it's just the magic of Venice right now, right?
Yeah.
It's really fantastic. And I'm not really sure, man or woman.
Yeah,
I don't
who
know.
Knows?
That could be any kind of party.
Who knows?
Boy, oh boy, this is
people watching World Series.
It's a good carnival. Sorry.
Like that. So someone that wants to like simplify you and like explain away any current success would look at it like that. But what's really happened is you take on something like fighting, jiu-jitsu, boxing, stick fighting, whatever, to such a high level, and transfer, like we talked about, those skills into something that has, on paper, nothing in common. But it really is everything in common. What's it look like for someone who is willing to show up every single day, whether they necessarily feel like things are going their way or not? It's a good day or it's a bad day. They're committed. They can put in work. They're willing to work hard. They're resistant to some sort of adversity, et cetera, et cetera. That's how you're successful in business. That's how you're right. And that piggyback leapfrog thing is possible because you went after something that came from within. Right. Something you wanted to do into something else that came from within. Imagine if you spent your whole career, well, just to go back to the fighting career, if you went back into your whole career for somebody else. Right. I'm just going to show up to practice because my parents want me to do it, or whatever. Those skills now are tainted by this sort of like false narrative of why you're doing it in the first place, right? I don't think that you have the I also feel like it's not the thing, in a way. Like, I feel like I'm thinking, and I look back before that, and I think about digging ditches on this construction site and digging ditches for this electrical journeyman, and they're laying down this whatever is this big National Guard building. We're doing this big thing, and I was thinking it sucks because it sucks to dig ditches. It's not great, right? Yeah. And I'm like, here's what my life is, and this is all it's going to be, and whatever. And when a guy told me, he says, you can feel however you want to feel about your day, but your day's got to happen. The rule is your day is going to go on, and that's when I fell in love with it. And I go, I can either love this or hate this, but at the end of 8 hours, this ditch has to be dug. And like, and I didn't want to fall in love with it because then I was like, oh, then I'm a ditch digger, and great. Right. And now, and it was never. So my point is, it's never about the thing. It was never about the activity. It's about the attitude and the consciousness of falling in love with my life. And that became the first transferable skill that I found that was positive, that was going on and took me to the next thing. And then when I'm washing cups at a fucking at a coffee shop, I'm washing cups with a different kind of purpose, man. Yeah. And I'm in love with my life. Yeah. And that is it wasn't the falling in love with digging ditches, but that was the thing that gave me the ideal to shoot for what my life needed to look like. And then I was able to take that into these other things. And that like behind the scenes on that is sort of that's like the science behind what the brain needs to experience happiness is a feeling of some amount of control, right? So if you're just digging ditches and feel like this is where I am because I have no other choice and I have to be here and I'm completely a victim of my day, victim of my surroundings, the brain neurologically cannot experience happiness. But the moment, so when your friend told you that, you captured some control of your day. You said, well, look, this is going to happen one way or another. I can choose. And that like freedom of like choosing a perspective gives you an opportunity to feel happiness, which, and free. That goes everywhere.
You don't feel confined.
If you walk around your day feeling like your financial well-being is sort of set in stone and out of your control, your relationship status or not is set in stone and out of your control, et cetera, right. That's some dismal shit, man. Like that's debilitating to anybody, and as a cause for depression if you feel like we are just a victim to our surroundings. But the moment you feel some amount of control, that you are at the controls and the helm of your own life,
right,
even just a little bit, you have an opportunity to feel happiness. I mean, we're always going to be affected by the world that we're living in.
Certainly.
Traffic happens to you, the weather happens to you, some asshole happens to you, whatever. But as long as you feel like you are navigating your own ship to some degree through the weather, whatever that looks like, I
feel like that's the truth of it too. Like your truth is what you choose. And in that way, and people think that's bullshit because they're like, I didn't choose to get cancer or whatever. But like when I look at things and I go, there's two realities: where my feet are right now, and what the story is that I think about what brought my feet to where they are right now.
Yeah.
Like I can't argue with where my feet are right now, but now I've got some leeway in like, what is it that brought me here? Was it because I just got dealt a bad deal? Was it this or that? Or was it because, I had a little fun and I messed around and now I'm here and I'm happy about being like, and it's like whatever that could be, and I don't care what it is that took your feet there. What your story is about it, that's the important aspect, I think. Like, as far as empowering yourself or being a victim. And it's one or the other.
For sure. I always trip out on, like, because I've tried to do this. I'm in the process of actually including this, like, in the book. But, anybody that's, like, hearing this right now could sort of think about their life in reverse. And if you were, the way I would describe it is if you were going to write, like, a synopsis of your life, like Instagram style, like extra positive, like only the good shit.
And thank God for Instagram, because we could write more good stuff now. We're not down to 160 characters on Twitter. You're great, Twitter, but
exactly. No, but I mean, if you were gonna like go highlight reel on your life and sort of exaggerate all the good shit, you were gonna write like a description of your life based on the most idealized version of it. Like, think about it. You go through and you mention all the great stuff and what high school was like, or whatever, athletics, or all your accomplishments or whatever. You can do the same exercise and think about the worst version of it.
It's always been horrible, and people like that.
And I mean, even when I do that, like the positive story is pretty cool. Like it sounds awesome when I go like highlight reel on my life. I've been really lucky. But like when you go the other way, it's fucking awful. And the scary part is it's fucking true.
Right.
It's fucking true.
It's all true.
Like, didn't get into this school, got dumped, fucking this failure, cut up, but whatever. And they're both fucking true, man.
That's real Wu-Tang right there. Everything is everything.
Everything is everything, man. So like, what story are you telling yourself,
It's so crazy. Yeah, and that's the thing is people want to argue about their misery. They want to argue and go, well, it's true, it's what happened. Yeah, it is.
Cool.
But also it happened like this, too.
Congrats.
You know, and it is that fucking choice, man. And that's the thing, too. I'm too tired to argue, man. I'm too old for all that. I can't fight with you about it. If that's where your belief is at, cool, man. Come see me if you get to the other side.
It's funny, like when you play, like, whatever, we always talk shit about baseball or whatever, but like it's a funny game because there's just...
I mean, you do. Those guys have got great facial hair. That's all I'm saying. Like a lot of those guys.
There's just so much like failure involved that it's hilarious.
It does trip me out. One of the first talks we ever had was about that.
Yeah.
And you're like, a Hall of Fame guy hits whatever.
Yeah, you're failing like 70% of the time. So it's like... It's a hilarious environment to talk about performance. Peak performance looks like so much failure. Right. So you if you get good, you get to this place where it's this like rigorous clarity on, does this help me or does it not?
Would you call it consistency in the light of failure, like being relentless regardless of failure?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that's true of any real like pursuit. But what I'm saying is there's so much failure in it is that you start to get really clear on like, look, anybody would agree with me that it's okay to feel bad or sad or not so confident about the fact that you're 0 for your last 20.
Right.
Like everybody would agree that that's a justifiable emotion, but here's the deal. There's no advantage to me feeling that way.
Yep.
And that's a fucking trip. But when you are paid based on your fucking ability to produce, you get really clear on like, it's like almost robotic. It's like, it doesn't pay doesn't help me. It doesn't make this any easier.
It's not going to make me hit the next ball.
Right. So you got to get clear on what's going to help right here, right now. And that's
it's cool.
a gnarly, I think, like, realization. And what we were just talking about with this whole, like, what version of your life do you tell yourself? You know, when you were saying people want to argue with, like, how real their misery is, like, yes, we should sympathize and empathize, and people need love and all that stuff, but it's kind of the reaction for me is like, awesome, like, have that, but that there's no advantage in thinking that way. So if you want to help yourself out, you get past that real quick.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's a sort of a black and white thing. Like, that's the conundrum of being a human, is we're emotional beings, but guess what? That shit doesn't pay.
But what does? Yeah, we need to control how we feel about things. What the event is irrelevant in a way. I remember the one of the starkest ways that speaks to that a little bit was when Mrs. Bauer got cancer and talking to the hospice people about it, and she was 70 and she's gonna die of cancer, and she has died a couple years ago. But they said, the hospice people said, this is the way I would choose. I would choose to have cancer like this. And I was like, that seems horrible, but these are people that are professionals at helping people die, at helping people in that final quarter of the life, you know. And why is that? Like, because this is like a death sentence, horrible. You watch the degrading of a human, of their soul, their body, their everything, and they said, because what's the alternative? You die in your sleep or something? I'm like, yeah, that's the way that, like, when you're like, if I had to go burned alive by fire or drowning or die in your sleep, like, it's always in your sleep. Like, everybody chooses that. And they go, cancer gives people, they can get their affairs in order, because what's our life is an amalgamation of all the loved ones that we've gathered and that all the the relationships that we know. They can get all their affairs in order. They can get right with everything, and then they get to go, like, and it's the smoothest transition as they walk through the door into that next consciousness. And I thought, fuck, that's an interesting way to look at it. That's the truth. Whereas I'd only ever felt bad about it before, and I thought, well, this is then a blessing. Yeah. Because guess what? We're all dying. Yeah. We're all going. Yeah. And it was a fresh perspective, and it never occurred to me.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you'd get really clear if that was you. It's like, is it to my advantage to be bummed out right now? Right. Because look, I only got X number of days, weeks, whatever.
And if my purpose is to be helpful to those around me, and if I'm just dead in a car crash, I don't get to do that. Yeah. But here I get to set up things that are going to help those that I'm leaving, and I get to hug and say goodbye and honor that relationship. It's one last time. Thought it was super interesting, man. I'm dying to piss right now. And, I look forward to finishing the next time and taking in some more of this wonderful Venice sunshine.
Oh, yeah.
Where can people find you, Logs?
I'm on the internet, man.
He's at Functional Coach.
That's right. At Functional Coach.
That's the best place. And then deucegym.com.
That's right.
Where you can read fantastic blogs. There's workouts there which are secondary to the kind of inspiration and insights that my man writes daily, without fail, relentlessly and consistently about life and awakenings, and it's kind of like a how-to step. If you're wondering about the book that comes out, I would say, I don't know shit about the book, but like I would say go to the deucegym.com blog, and you get snippets of an enlightened way of thinking that has been super powerful and beneficial to me anyway. What else? And originalnutritionals.com?
Yeah, originalnutritionals.com, and
all fuckery free supplements and nourishing for the body and all that.
Thanks for having me on, man.
Yeah, dude.
This was rad.
Yeah, love you very much, man.
Love you, bro.
Talk soon.